Hey everybody, I'm Beebs Kelley. Welcome back to another video. Today's fashion edition is taking a look at some of the best and worst red carpet celebrity moments. Let's start with this interesting piece from Anne Hathaway. This is it almost reminds me of like a dream catcher or some sort of, I don't know, it's like a bit rattan or something. I don't know, it looks a little bit like a lampshade. It's not that successful, that's the point. It has this very, very deep and wide scoop neck. That color just sort of washed her out. The macrame, wall hangings, dream catcher vibes, just not quite hitting it, but she's usually really on point. I like a lot of what she wears. She has really great sense of style and she carries off outfits really, really well most of the time. She does have a good body for dressing and for wearing these types of interesting clothes, but this one just doesn't vibe for me. I do not like it. Next, we have Selena Gomez, and this one I actually quite like from the waist up, but I absolutely despise what's happening with the skirt portion, if you could even call it that, because it's like vines hanging there with flowers and petals hanging off of it, which might have worked a little bit better if it had some sort of skirt underneath it. I honestly think actually it could have been very successful if it had just had like a flowy chiffon with those red vines sewn onto it so that they weren't just like dangling and hanging so noisy like this, because this is very, very noisy. But these just, they don't vibe. They don't work. It looks messy. And I think if they would have been, like I said, sewn onto a skirt that had some flow and movement, it would have been fine. This is just chaotic and it looks tacky, unfortunately. Red is an amazing color on her. You know, there's nothing drawing your attention to her waistline. So that part of it works well. So many pieces of it seem like it would be all right. It's just, I think that skirt is ruining it. Here we have Salma Hayek. This one is kind of polarizing. Some people really hated it, but honestly, I think it's fine. I think it's really interesting from a fashion perspective. This is giving the impression of a leather jacket turned into a skirt. I really love the top. I'm completely obsessed with the top. You could have gone for a different necklace with this though. It doesn't feel like it's tied in because the silver, rivets and zipper of the jacket skirt is not bold enough and bright enough to make it feel like it's cohesive with that necklace that's really chunky and really bright and really bold in comparison to all the black. So I feel like it would have been more successful if the same necklace was black, or if it was just finer, like less chunky, a little bit thinner of a necklace. I think it would have been fine because it would have then matched the rivets and the zippers vibe. But those, as you can see, are like so small and sort of muted. They don't match the impact of that chunkier necklace there. It just doesn't feel tied in as much. But despite this outfit not being everybody's taste, definitely leaning grunge fashion-wise, obviously, but it's interesting and it's executed well. So I think it works really well. I would have also gone for different shoes, probably. I feel like where they're hitting her on her calf is just not the most flattering point. It needs to either go ahead and go up to the knee or be lower to where it's not hitting her at one of the thicker points of her calf. Like just a little lower, closer to her ankle would have been better. But honestly, it probably up closer to the knee would have been the best option. Or if instead of fishnet, she did a regular pantyhose, like a regular tight that matched or reflected the same mesh that's up here on this top portion of the shirt, then it would have been even more cohesive. A change of shoe, perhaps a change of nylon, and a change of necklace would have made this a perfectly cohesive look. I really love her hair down. Her makeup looks beautiful. She's always stunning. Absolutely love her. But then we have this terrible mess, also in black, but horribly terrible, from Sam Smith. Stop it. This is just not good. This is too costumey. It's not even just costumey. It's silly. It's so silly. This is ridiculous. I hate it so much. Who wants inflatable clothes? Exactly no one. It's just not working for me at all. It's so awkward. I can't stand it. We're moving on. Quickly. Elie Goulding, also in a not that successful look in black. It could have been successful though, which is a shame because the top was just ruined here. This is a breastplate style top, and these are coming into popularity a little bit more and more. But the problem is that if you don't get them done properly or they don't do it well enough, then you get this effect. You can see there's like wrinkling under here and it's pulling and lifting away up across here. That is so distracting. That is all your eye goes to. It's also creating a weird shadow over the belly area. So it's just not successful, this approach. I've seen these been carried off much more successful. But it's like as if the person who did it didn't know what they were doing. You're not supposed to allow for this sort of wrinkling to happen. It's as if maybe the plaster or the mold that they used was not smoothed out enough, or it wasn't kept at the right temperature or something like that, because that sort of wrinkling effect shouldn't be there. It looks messy. And even when these are done successfully, I would say they're only like moderately working. I feel like they can definitely work when you're leaning into the vibe enough. But if it's not executed perfectly, it doesn't matter how much you lean into it with your styling and your clothing and stuff. It's not going to work if it's done bad like this one is. It really ruined the intended effect. It gave off a messy and screwy sort of proportion here. The pants are great though, and she would have looked so chic if she just wore a normal top with this. If she just had on a normal top, she would have looked great. Here we have Shania Twain in something that looked quite nice for her. I absolutely love yellow, you guys know that. The asymmetrical seam across here, it's very flattering to her, although this one isn't my favorite. This one's material almost looks a little bit cheap. I feel like part of that is how this seam is laying, and there's like a little bit of extra room in her armpit there that's just a little bit distracting. So I feel like this one isn't perfect, but I'd give it like a B- maybe. It's okay. There's parts of it that are successful. She's about 5'4", so you can see here how this monochromatic, just all one color, all the way down long sleeves, the high collar, is helping to elongate her. This slender sort of silhouette in a monochrome solid like this is quite lengthening. So that part of it is really lovely. And again, the high neckline helps to encourage that vertical line all the way up. So that was really strong here. And the asymmetrical seam draws your eyes down, and then you can flow right back up to her hair and her smile and her jewelry and whatnot. So that part of it's nice and sleek. And it's useful because it needed something to give it a little bit of direction. It needed something to encourage some degree of movement, or else you would be just looking at any sort of flaw in the dress. And there are some. So having something of a focal point that's not necessarily breaking up anything and not changing color is the best approach. It just could have been executed a little bit better. Now here is one of my favorite looks from a red carpet this year, which was Taylor Swift at the Grammys. This is a gorgeous midnight blue look with these beautiful crystals. I absolutely love the way these are just diffused so beautifully and elegantly. It literally looks like the night sky with stars. It is so gorgeous and beautiful. It's something that I would wear or buy. I just love this clean, sleek approach that's just beautiful, and the sparkle there, it's not overpowering, it flows really nicely, it's gorgeous. So she is very tall. She's like 5'10", I think, maybe around there. She's super tall, so she can pull off this silhouette really, really easily. A shorter, more petite gal like me, for example, a skirt and crop top is fine, but having the turtleneck paired up with it might be a little bit suffocating or a little bit harder to pull off successfully. Like a rounded or crew neck collar would have been a little bit better, or a lower neckline might have been, in order to just make it look better for your proportions. But for her, she can get away with it. But it was so flattering, just gorgeous. And the earrings here, they're really big, really dramatic, really chunky, but they're very balancing to the exposed midsection here, because that would be like the only focal point. So you really need something to draw your eye back up to her face by having those bright earrings that are nice and big. It's tied into the outfit perfectly, but at first I was almost like, are they too much? But no, because you need them to draw your eye back up. It's perfect styling too. Now here we have Emily Blunt at the Oscars. This is Valentino, and I am obsessed. I absolutely love this. This is really, really good tailoring and a thoughtful design. It is perfection achieved here. I love that the sleeves, they're a detached sleeve, and they evoke the idea of opera gloves because of, they come all the way up like this, but obviously they are sleeves. They do not have the glove portion. So it's a really interesting design choice that I think kept it feeling really, really fresh, despite it being just a plain white column dress with detached sleeves. Like, it made it completely fresh and new, which is super cool. And of course, with opera gloves coming into trend a little bit here, it's a really great way to be innovative and kind of stay on trend, but skirt around it and make it your own. Because obviously opera gloves are not for everybody and they don't work for everybody. And in this instance, I think an opera glove would not have been anywhere near as successful as this. This is so perfect. I also love how it comes down a little bit over the wrist. I really like that look here in this situation. So it was innovative, it's styled perfectly, it's fit perfectly, most importantly probably, and it just looks great. Now here's a questionable one for you. We have Allison Williams in Giambattista Valley, and this needed editing really, really bad. The feather trim, I know there's too much going on. You're like, what feather trim? That feather trim. Down at the bottom of this dress, which is already busy with embroidery and embellishments, there's like some degree of jewels stuck on there and beading and embroidery on a sheer outer layer with a nudish, pinkish nude underlayer. And then there's a feathered bottom. And the feathered trim would have been enough on its own without the opera coat. The opera coat belonged to a simpler, maybe even a mini dress or a midi dress that was like a simpler sheath dress, something in a matching hue, perhaps even, shocker, because this just doesn't quite vibe. I just don't think that this sparkly, sheer embroidered type dress goes with it very well. I see that there is tulle under the pink portions of the opera coat, giving it its volume and shape, which is cool on its own, but it doesn't quite match with the feathering at the bottom of the dress, so it doesn't really flow nicely together. It's just not working. It's just not a cohesive design. The coat really kind of drowns out the feather trim, and so they're competing with each other, and it doesn't add anything to the look either. This opera coat isn't enhancing her look at all. It's not altering the silhouette in a way that's like interesting or creating a flow or giving direction to the dress in any way. Honestly, you kind of just end up resting on that opera coat, that peachy pink there, or almost bubblegum pink. It's a beautiful pink, but you just stare at the coat. You're not drawn to the dress and the detail of the dress. And that's the problem with things that are competing, is that then one of them gets completely lost. No matter how busy or fanciful it is, it ends up being completely lost because the other one is dominating it visually. And here it has so much going on, the dress she's wearing, that it losing out in competition to the opera coat is the wrong approach. It's making it feel busy or messy in a bad way. It's sadly a fail. But it didn't have to be. Next we have Nicole Kidman in one of her favorite designers, Armani Privé. The styling here is perfection. I would have loved this without the flowers, but with the flowers, I think it's still okay. I'm just not 100% behind the flowers. I'm never huge on like giant, stuck on looking like flowers or things like that. Like they almost look like appliques. I'm not a huge fan of them. I think it works okay here. Sleeve is helping to offer some balance, but it's still not my absolute favorite. I feel like I want to see it without the flowers on there, and it may have just been absolutely divine. But I don't hate the flowers either. I really think she carries Armani Privé impeccably. I mean, she just does a wonderful job wearing their clothes. The dress is tailored perfectly. She's styled really, really nicely. I like how her makeup has this sort of peachy hue. It's not in competition with anything, and it's not too dark. Sometimes you'll see celebrities, if they're wearing something dark, like a dark dress like this, they go in with really dark eye makeup and really, really smoky dark eyes. It's just too much sometimes. It's not needed. This, I feel like, looks more elegant, having that gentler, softer makeup that still has a bit of smokiness to it. Like she obviously has like a brown smoky eye on, but it's not the same impact as black. It's not taking over her makeup look like black would on the eyes. So this is just a really, really great styling option here. Her hair looks kind of relaxed and nice, which is a bit of a juxtaposition to the elegance of the black gown. But what do you guys think about the flowers? You'll understand why I'm a little wary of the flowers when you look what happened next. Halle Berry's dress got ruined by flowers. This dress, it would have been completely fine without these flowers. Get them out of here. Take them off. Pick them. Get them out of here. They shouldn't have been there. What are they doing? It's bad. It does not go. It does not work. I feel like if they wanted to do these flowers across here like this, it needed like an almost Athena-like, like a Greek goddess sort of a draped dress in like a peachy brown that almost matched it. Like a blush color is what it needed. Not this white that has beautiful draping, yes, but it's not quite as much like flowy fabric as what I would envision for these flowers to work properly. Down from the flowers, something really just sort of Greek goddess inspired would have worked, but this does not, in part because you have this collar peeking out above the row of flowers and then coming down, so it makes the flowers look like an afterthought. And then what are they doing here on her hip? Just covering up maybe too much exposure? Then fix her dress, give her some sort of an underskirt, lower the slit, tailor it properly. I don't know, but it looks like it's trying to cover up too high of a slit and too much exposure. That's what they look like. They look like they were tacked on there because the slit was too high. And then they're like, well, let's make it cohesive and put some up here too. No. Part of the problem is that they are adding visual weight to the shoulder line and the chest with that higher collar underneath on top of it. It's looking extra messy up there. But the placement is also really awkward just in general. So it's really sad because the skirt and the train look really beautiful otherwise. And I don't even think that like the style of the dress itself would have been bad on its own. I do not necessarily like how it's happening under here with the, like, there needed to be some sort of definition to her bust area. Just some sort of like seam under her bust to accentuate her figure better and differentiate between that waistline coming in asymmetrically would have been helpful as well, because these just look like strips of fabric placed and they could have used more definition, you know, to flatter her figure the best they could. But overall, I think the flowers ruined it. For sure. But the dress overall could have had some improvements to get better. And then her hair, you know, I'm not in love with it because it's blocking the eye. When something's just completely covering one eye, it feels a little too emo for me. I'm not into it. Here we have another unfortunate look, and it's surprisingly by one of my favorite designers. So this is a shame. Alexander McQueen made this really unflattering, terrible dress for Rooney Mara to wear. The bottom half looks like dramatic curtains that have been like tied off. At the bottom, they look like curtains. And the shoulder feature is making her bust look droopy and squashed. Maybe because of the angle that the shoulders are coming down here, it's just kind of making her bust look funky and droopy here. And then you have the rectangular band also across the bust, which is, again, just not very flattering. In part because they are all the same shade of fabric, but they vary in texture and opacity. So some of them are very sheer, some of them less so, some of them have more of a ribbed sort of look to them, like lots more texture, more chiffon-y than others. So those changes in texture without enough differentiation in color and shade is kind of muddying up the look a little bit. It's not giving it enough definition. So it's giving a really chunky vibe at the bust, a frumpy midsection here, and a slouchy vibe across the shoulders. And then it's just kind of messy and awkward down at the bottom with that tie. I get what they were going for, but it looks like something you might mark up on a mannequin and then you need to edit it like a lot before it gets better, and this just didn't make it for me. And so it's really unfortunate because it is Alexander McQueen and I usually like their stuff quite a little bit, but this is a terrible miss. But let's refresh with this absolutely stunning gown on Cara Delevingne. This is spectacular. Despite the flowery bow detail here on the shoulder, it has such excellent balance, this dress does, and it flows beautifully on her tall frame. The exposed shoulder and the slit on opposite sides here add balance, and then you have the volume from this bow flower thing on this side with the volume of the extra fabric of the skirt on this side. So each side is balanced in its own right, which is perfection. I like the asymmetry that's happening here. I absolutely love the length of this dress. It doesn't feel overwhelming because of that slit, fortunately, and because of her height, she can carry off this huge bow thing on her shoulder without it eating her up or dominating her figure or making it look cartoonish or silly. So I absolutely love the symmetry that is found here in this asymmetrical look. The color is also such a rich, deep red. I really, really love this interesting color choice here because it's not this like bright, pow pop of red. It's got a bit of a deepness to it that is unique for a red fabric. It's very beautiful. And then of course her jewelry and styling is not competing in any way, shape, or form. It flows really nicely. It all matches really, really well. So this was masterfully styled and a just impeccably constructed dress. Which one was your favorite from today, and which one was the worst disaster, do you think? I hope you enjoyed today's fashion edition. Thank you so much for being here with me, and I will see you next time. Have a happy day, everybody. Bye!